Welcome to my Cosmic Diary, a space where I show how spiritual experiences move through this human life. Here, the mystical meets the mundane. Welcome. You are listening to the very first podcast of my Cosmic Diary. This is going to be a podcast where I will be discussing very personal stories and how to merge spiritual experiences with our day-to-day life. It is really going to be about personal stories and our spiritual experiences. And the first one that I would like to start with is a moment in time where I feel my soul's path truly got activated. And it's interesting that it's a moment in time, because that's exactly what I want to get into. It's about our reality and our belief system around time. So before I dive into the actual story, if we think about time, we live in a world where time is very linear, or where we feel at least that time is very linear. We are being born, then we grow, we move forward, and at a certain time it stops, right? It's moment by moment, as if we are in a linear path moving forward. The past is behind us, the future is ahead, and sometimes we even forget to be in the now, in the time of being in the present. And that just got me thinking, because what if this is all just an illusion? What if time is not something we move through, but it all exists at once and at the same time? Again, the word time. And of course, we have all heard this before. Our mental state knows this. It has said to us, probably many times, that time is all now. But what if you truly experience it? What if your past, present, and future selves are all existing in the same moment? And what if you had the ability to reach across these timelines, to guide, heal, and to shift your own reality based on having the ability to not see time as a linear path, but as a circle? And I would like to dive a little bit more into this idea, into the quantum nature of time, and how I personally experienced this during the birth of my son. So that is actually where I would like to start this podcast, with the birth of my son. And it doesn't mean that from there on I will only have stories from this birth and then until now. I will probably shift back and forward, because for me that is time. Doesn't necessarily follow one line. So let's start by shifting our perspective into the quantum field. So if time doesn't move in a straight line, and it actually exists in a field of infinite possibilities, where we have different timelines of past, present, future, and they are all happening simultaneously. Imagine that that straight line is not actually a road that you are walking along, but that you are surrounded by a very flowing ocean, and that you are in the middle of it, and that you can reach in front of you, behind you, above you, beneath you, literally like the flow of a wave that is all around you. And this is exactly how I see it, and why we might experience intuitive flashes or deja, or a certain inner knowing. These are all just coming to our awareness because timelines are rubbing up against each other, or brushing next to each other like those waves. They intertwine. I really believe that this is also why healing is possible across time. That our future self can send us guidance to our present self, that we can rewrite past experiences by shifting our relationship with those experiences, that our memories live inside of us, and that they shape our reality, but that we can consciously choose to change that. And to my understanding, birth is one of the most quantum experiences that we go through. It's something that we all go through. We all go through these quantum experiences when we are birthed into this planet. Mothers experience this when we birth our children into this world. It is a moment where multiple timelines come together. And when we really take it very literal, the soul of the baby is entering there are different perspectives if this is actually the exact moment of the birth or if this happens a bit later. But let's say that it enters when the baby comes through. The mother's body is transforming. Our past life memories are being activated and imprints are coming together. It is truly a portal, a quantum portal. And birth is giving us our birth time. This is a very precise imprint in linear time, but at the same time, a multi-dimensional activation. And as quantum as birth is, it is giving us something very tangible. Our birth date, our birth time, our birth location. And how I see it is that that is a code, a 3D code, a key to decode our whole incarnation. And the moment that we step through the birth portal, when we take our first breath, when soul meets our body, that is the moment in time where we are anchored into this earth plane, and that birth time links us directly to our ascendant in astrology. That is the exact degree on the eastern horizon when we entered. It is the energy that we want to rise into in this incarnation, that we rise towards. And at the same time, it is the energy that the world is perceiving us. For me, how beautiful is that? That in order to unlock our quantum multidimensional self, we first have to receive a code that is very tangible, grounded in time and space. A 3D code that carries the frequency to open the door towards our highest timeline. And this is why astrology for me is not just symbolic. It is a language, and it gives us, again, codes for us to remember. And it is very intentional. It is the map that our soul chose to bring with ourselves, so that in a moment that we no longer remember who we are, or in a moment that we need support or guidance, it is something to come back to the codes that you were born with, and the codes that are here to help you remember who you truly are. And that is something that I experienced when my son was born. So what I would like to share is the birth of my son from two different perspectives. And it will all make sense when the two different perspectives come together. But first, I would like to dive into the idea of the 3D human experience, the physical, the emotional journey of labor, of giving birth. So let's start there. It was New Year's Eve. My son was born on the 1st of January. And at a certain time, I was alone in the hospital. I had waited as long as I could at home with my mom, with my sister, with my partner, of course. I wanted to wait as long as possible. I delivered in Spain, and it is not very common to have a home birth. So I gave birth in the hospital. So in that exact moment, I was there in the hospital alone because of New Year's Eve. All the nurses and the midwives, etc., they were actually celebrating the transition into the new year. I was going through a complete different transition. So while I was there alone, as my partner was taking care of all the admin stuff, I was sitting on the floor. I was looking at my huge belly that kept contracting and pulling it into a very large round ball. And I remember saying, okay, so this is your moment. You can come now, and Happy New Year. And I knew that he would be born into the next year, as it was already 12 o'clock and we were celebrating. And during that whole phase, at home, in the hospital, I remained completely calm. I was following the rhythm of my contractions. It was my first birth, but everything went very intuitively. I felt completely in sync with my body, to a certain point in control of what was happening, but by letting go of the control and just following my body. So that first stage, it was quite beautiful. And then I had been pushing for hours and hours and hours. I remember that I had tried all these different positions to birth baby into this world, and at one point my uterus just stopped contracting. There were just no contractions coming. My son was not moving anymore, and there came a belief into my awareness, and it was, I cannot do it because he's stuck. Those were the things that came into my mind. It is impossible. He's stuck. My body is telling me that it's not possible because there are no more contractions. So in that moment, it was kind of like being frozen. My body, mind, time was frozen, as if I was trapped. And in that moment, I believed that it was truly impossible. Then something happened that I only understood months and months later. So at one point, the midwife is checking up on my son's health, and she says to me, his heartbeat is lowering. He has to come out now. And by those words, even though my body was completely exhausted, my mind at that point didn't believe it was possible anymore. Something happened, something came over me, like literally it felt like something came over me, that I grabbed my partner's hand for him, because I know that with my nails I squeezed hard, and I gave everything I had, and without any contractions I gave it one last push, like a that came from deep within me. It was like a primal force came over me, and I was able to birth my son. It felt like how I described it to friends and family. It felt like I had to give part of my vital force energy. That part of my vital force energy was leaving me as I was birthing my son into this world. And now we shift into the quantum experience. So it was only maybe 2-3 months later, I went on a shamanic journey. I relived that whole moment. I went into the birth experience again, but this time it was from a different perspective. It was from, like, it was me journeying, seeing my past self, at that point it was my past self, in that hospital birthing my son, and I was like facing her. So we were eye to eye, and the version of me that existed a few months later was visiting my birthing self. So to not make it confusing, let's talk from the point of view that I was in the journey. So I was hovering above myself, I was watching and guiding, and I was helping her to push my son into the world. So I remember that in that journey, I was breathing a force of energy, life force energy, via the mouth of my previous self into the body, filling it with energy, with the idea of that she was strong, that she could do this. And that was a moment in that journey that I realized that time is not linear. I helped myself, my future self helped my past self birth my son into this world. And that is because there is no present, past, or future. It is all existing in the same moment. And that was the very first time that I experienced time consciously as a circle and not as a straight line. There are probably more experiences that we have where we experience this, but in that moment it really became into my awareness and into my consciousness that time is truly just an illusion. And during this whole experience, it was not only a power of belief regarding time, it was also an experience that revealed something deeper. It was not just my future self helping me. I had been also carrying an old belief, a generational imprint, that I was stuck. So when I was born, when I went through the birth portal, I had been trapped in my mom's birth canal for over hours. I do not know the exact time, but I know that they told me it was a long time. And my body remembered, even though my mind doesn't remember that happening. I do not remember being birthed into this world. But on a cellular level, in my DNA, in my body did remember that trauma. In the moment of birthing my son, that memory came back to my consciousness. It was like my body was reliving the trauma of my own birth, that I had stored that belief that birth is where we get stuck. And that belief became in that moment my reality. But by revisiting that moment, by witnessing myself from outside of I saw that I was actually never stuck. That moment was not frozen. I was not trapped. I was simply moving through an experience that I was always meant to move through to evolve. And if we think of this concept of birth, where for me it is very clear, there must be so many other moments where we can apply this to. So if this is true for birth, what else is this true for? And that is something that I would like to leave you with, that if time is fluid, like how might your true future self be guiding you right now? And if you could send your past self a message, what would you say? And if you could ask your future self for guidance, what questions would you ask? Because all of this is actually possible. It is all now. And we are multidimensional beings that are constantly creating and weaving between timelines. That we are creating and healing even across lifetimes. It's not just timelines. There is basically no limit. And birth, if it is the birth of a child, a new idea, a new version of yourself, the creation of something new coming into existence, that is a portal of quantum multidimensional self. You can ask for guidance to these versions of yourself. There is no limit with time, as it is just an illusion. I hope this resonated with you, and I hope that you take a moment to connect with your future self, and please let me know what came up for you when you did so. Thank you for listening. If this unlocked memories within you, or if codes returned, come find me in the stars. You will find all the links below. Let your inner light shine like the phases of the moon, illuminate exactly what is meant to be seen now.